Hello, Eternals. I'm building these StormCast, 3 guys and a bird, for WarCry Crypt of Blood. So I built the Soulblight Gravelord vampires years ago, along with the really awesome terrain that came with it. And the new set is nice because it comes with bases with decorations on them. Little one for the bird. I don't think that's a size I've seen yet. I don't know if that's 20 millimeter or what that is. That's not a size I believe I've seen yet. These look like 40 millimeter, but I may be wrong. Yeah, it doesn't even say on the instructions. So I'm going to be more of a show than a tell in my new videos. So I am going to go through the building of these Xandire's TruthSeekers, the particular StormCast Eternals that work for this set. And then I will have 4 armies for WarCry. I will have the Untamed Beasts, which I've been painting lately and making videos. I will have the Iron Golem, which I painted a long time ago. Painted them all iridescent and then put metallic paint over the top. I made videos about that a long time ago. And the Gravelord, the Soulblight Gravelord, vampires, I made a video about how those turned out a pretty long time ago now. All the terrain is basically built, except for one piece. The little stairway and platform that goes over Sigmar's head statue that's on its side. I've already got Sigmar's head put together. I patched all the gaps and I painted it to look like marble. I'm probably going to go over it with a gloss medium to make it look more like marble, and I'll make a video about that when I do it. So the first instructions here say to put together piece 8 and piece 9. So I usually pick the bigger of the 2 pieces to do first. And check and double check that you got the right piece. So that looks like the right piece even in the picture, which is this right here. So what you always want to do, and I don't say this, is you want to pick the piece that looks the most fragile and clip it first. And you want to clip it with the flat side, not this side, but the flat side of the clippers towards the model, so you have less to scrape. And then 1, 2, 3. I'm going to count the number of cuts so I know how many places I'll have to scrape. And I've been better lately about after I do that. Notice I'm rotating this piece with my left hand to make sure that I get it completely smooth. And what I'm going to be better about, as I was saying, doing is mold lines. Because I looked at some of my models after they've been painted and saw mold lines that I was horrified. And then after I've gotten as much with the knife directly, then I go over and scrape it. And it certainly doesn't, I don't think, hurt the surface to scrape it a little bit. I think it'll just make actually the paint stick better. So I'm looking for kind of a whitish spot. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there it is right there. For kind of a whitish spot as to where the third is. Okay, and now I'm looking for mold lines. And the models that I saw it now, I'm going to call these mold lines. And where I clipped it, there was a little bit of white showing, but after scraping it like that, I don't see them anymore. I'm going to call this a mold line too, and just scrape it a little bit. You can also use sandpaper. And you got to be careful of these really fragile little parts as you're holding it. So I hold them flat in my fingers. I've actually adjusted the angle on my fingers, so I'm holding them both flat and very firmly. And then also hold on to the larger piece at the same time so that I stabilize those. Okay, that is piece 8. Now I'm going to find piece 9. Maybe it'll be near it. Yeah, right there. And that does look like the shape of it. It looks like it'll go up like that. And I apologize for the disruption, but my daughter is texting me and I have to go babysit my granddaughter. Okay, not important. Sorry to disrupt the video. All right, it looks like there's 3 places, okay? And probably the most fragile is maybe right here. And this is important that you don't clip off that little connector and that you do it flat to there so you'll have less scraping to do. 1. And I'm also stabilizing this as I cut the next one. 2, flat to the arm. And I'm stabilizing it again. 3. Sometimes it helps to go to the back. Yeah, I didn't feel like it really released. So I have 3 places to scrape on this. If you want to see my WarCry painting videos, some of them have been put on restricted because my feet were showing in the video. 2, pretty much across the board, whenever unintentionally my feet were showing, it got restricted. And then this one's kind of hard because it's down in there. And I'm kind of rotating it with my left hand as I kind of scrape it out. And then I'm going to set it down on the table. Good, you can see that, I think, with the camera. That was a hard one to do. I like to kind of scrape along the edges of these because these are such tight fit. It'll just make it a little easier to put together when I go to do it. Scrape the top of his arm a little bit too. Yeah, so it disappeared and now it looks all dark. What disappeared is the light part. All right, looks like I am missing a part. Oh, there it is, okay. So what I do when I put these things together is make sure it's facing in the right orientation. And I hold it at the exact angle that it is in the book picture. That's really helpful because it's difficult sometimes to figure out how these things go together. So it looks like his foot is facing out, which makes sense. And then there should be a little joiner there, but there doesn't appear to be. So it definitely goes like that, but it doesn't stay together. So it looks like there's a defect on it, like there was supposed to be a joiner there, and there's not. But it's possible that the next piece will hold it together. So I'm going to cut out the next pieces and see if once those two are sandwiched together, it holds it together. I'm really glad I made this video now because This would be something that, if you're new to building models, this would probably really throw you for a curve. Okay, 11 looks like the cloak, but that cloak is 14. Got to go on the side of the numbers. Okay, there it is, 11. So it's this cloak. Doesn't look like there's any small parts, so I can kind of move around it. 1. Now, I couldn't really get at it at this angle, so I'm going to go to the back. And I believe it's that one right there. 2. Oh, nope, I got the wrong one. 3. And finally 4, holding the clipper real flat to it. The higher you go up on it, the more force it'll kind of eject itself from the thing. Just something to kind of realize. That may be helpful if you're cutting a very small part, to kind of go down near the bottom of the clippers so it doesn't put it apart as much. Okay, I'm scraping it so that it's all the same level. So when I go to paint it, it won't look like there was a thing there. And I kind of feel it to make sure it feels kind of smooth. And then 2 is up here. Good place to have a joiner because it's easy to get at. And then 3. And if you've kept the tool real flat when you cut it, you won't really have much to scrape at all. And then the last one is right here. And again, I scrape it so that it... Now mold lines. What are we looking at as far as mold lines? Sometimes when you go back to them again, you see things that you didn't see before. And I kind of feel it with my finger, and if you have strong fingernails and you're not afraid of breaking them, you can kind of use your fingernail too to remove some material and get it more flat. All right, so that will be on his back. So I kind of, yeah, see how that goes through? Yeah, so that sticks together with that. And then this is oriented like that. So I'll kind of just lay that down, and we'll figure that out when we get piece 10. And as hard as this is, it's only 3 figures and a bird. I expected the bird to go together in 2 parts. Yeah, 2 parts for the bird and then a part for the tree that it's sitting on. So not too tough. All right, what part is that? Part 10. This looks like it might be it right here. And there's supposed to be this gap. I was worried for a minute because I did have a model where there wasn't supposed to be a gap, and there was. And then I also look at something like this. Should that be there? And it looks like there might be a little thing there if you hold it at the right angle, so I'm going to leave that. I don't think that's excess. All right, where's the most fragile part? Probably right here. So I'm stabilizing it with my finger back behind it. 1, 2, I'm kind of going in at an angle to get that flat. 3, notice I'm stabilizing it with my thumb and forefinger, and then I'm stabilizing it with my right hand while I switch hands. 4. If you lose count, you can go back and count 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 4 places to scrape on it. So I know one of them was on the end of, oh, here's one right here. Yeah. Now you could just scrape it, and I've heard people say scrape it and scrape it with the dull side of the blade. And that's probably a good way to start out, depending on your knife control skills, but it is slower. So going with the blade first, if you're very exact and you got it at the right angle because you've turned it with your other hand, the right angle will save you some time. But you can also take a gouge out of where you don't want to, right? More easily. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. So I've scraped 2. There's probably one there, but I did such a good job clipping it. Can't really tell. I'm going to count it 3. And maybe on this, yes, I can see the dull color when I put the little LED light over on it. Right on his calf. And I also see a mold line too. So I'm going to wipe off the excess that I didn't get going forward with the knife. And then I'm also going to wipe off that mold line. Same, yeah, there's a pretty bad mold lines on this side too. Now I kind of scraped that, which I shouldn't have. Probably ruined some detail. So that'll be a matter of do what I say, not what I do, right? All right, and then this thing's gonna go together. Yeah, that looks pretty good like that, right? And then the other part is already put together. Just press fits. And after I get a bunch of pieces press fitted like this, it's good to go back. See, I can see a place where there was the sprue was attached right there that I didn't get. Not sure why, but there often is things like that that you want to remove. A lot of times fingernail is a good tool for this. All right, it's looking pretty good. And this was the new place where it attaches, so I'm just gonna go around and just take off a little bit just so it fits down in there, not quite so tight. Be very careful and just do that very subtly. All right. Looks like there's only one more piece. He's holding a lantern. So that is number 12. So the weakest piece looks like right here. So I'm going to cut that first. 1. And I'm stabilizing it. 2. And stabilizing it. Moving my fingers to stabilize it again. 3. And depending on how large the piece is, you may have to use your other hand to stabilize it until you can get your offhand back stabilizing it again. So to put that again, that large piece, I think it was number 10. Yeah, because it had that opening in it. I was holding the piece with my left hand, and then I had to use my right hand, the hand I would normally use for a clipper, to kind of stabilize it until I could get my left hand back to stabilize it in a new place. Hopefully that's clear as mud, right? 1, 2, and then 3. And I'm making sure that my finger's not in the way when it slips, right? I have the added advantage of being an auto mechanic and a guitarist, so that my skin is pretty thick. There's calluses on the ends of all my fingers from those metal strings. Make sure there's no mold lines. No, it looks pretty good. And that looks pretty good. So that has, I would expect it to have an opening. Yeah, there's the opening right there. And the opening goes in his hand. And then you want to make sure you pay attention to the anatomy, that his hand actually lines up with his arm. And you could possibly fill that gap, but I think it looks like he's got a ungloved hand there at the wrist and then a gloved hand there. So I'm not going to fill that gap because I think that gap is actually supposed to be there. All right, and then it's base number 13. So 2013, here we go. Since I'm thinking of it too, 1, 2, 3 places to scrape. Since I'm thinking of it, and when I remove these bases, I go away from this, so I don't go through it to where it scrapes against it, right? But while I'm thinking of it, those black bases that come separate in the box will sometimes have where they were attached to the sprue. Because maybe they make them on like a big sprue, I don't know. But I found that lately, that sometimes there will be sprue attachment points on even those black bases that come separate. So don't forget to look for those, because then when you go to paint them, they won't be even. How do I know this the hard way? Clean up with my fingernail a little more. 3. See, now there I gouged it kind of a little bit. I'll make it look at least level. But I could have been at a better angle with the knife. And I did take some gouges out of it, like I did a pretty good job there. But I kind of beveled it a little bit there and a little bit there, so my experience probably needs to get a little bit better. And then, of course, the base has to be oriented right. And then I'm double checking that by this foot is up, so it should definitely go in there. And now I'm glad that I scraped these a little bit, so they probably won't go in so hard. And then I make sure I don't push down on him to where he could break something, but I push down on his actual feet. There's a pretty big honking gap in there. So I think what I'm going to do is pull this apart a little bit and get a little glue and put in there. Be right back. And this gives me the chance to talk about these Citadel glue bottles. I absolutely love these. I think they are so nicely designed. If it has some glue on there, I remove it. And what I found is if it's all the way down, it doesn't seem to flow glue. It seems to flow glue better depending on how far it's out. And it's probably a matter of when it gets low, how far it is from this little funnel here. But the more you pull it out, the more flow you seem to get. So I'm just getting the glue off of the end of it. And then I'm steadying it with my other hand. And less is more on this stuff, right? And if you're having to squeeze it so much, probably the thing isn't out enough. And this is probably when it'll choose to run out on me, right? Let's see if I can pull it out more. Oh yeah. All right, let's see if there's any glue in here. You can sure smell it, which is not good. I think there's very, very little glue in there. So what I'm going to try to do is pull this thing out the farthest I possibly can. It feels very unstable. I think what I may do is try to get a little bit out here. Yeah, okay, yeah, there's a little bit left in there. And then kind of use the needle to kind of put it in there. Not as neat as I had hoped. And then, as Sword and Steel says, this stuff won't stick to your hands. But it's still not a good idea to get it on your hands. So what I'm going to use is, I'm going to grab a microfiber cloth to try to wipe that off before it dries. And then I'll just end up replacing this microfiber cloth because the paint won't come out of it anyways. And I use it for dry brushing so that I don't get remnants of the paper towel. And now I'm just squeezing it together until it has a chance to melt the plastic. And that is pretty gap free. And it's also pretty clean from excess glue. Probably cleaner than I normally am. But you don't want any strings or anything coming off of it when I go to paint it. And I think I'll probably just go over it just to be sure. Go over it lightly with a real fine little fingernail file that's sold at shops. And this is so fine. This is a number extra fine. It doesn't have a number, I guess. It just feels totally smooth to me, which is good. And I'm just going to go over it just to make sure that there's no glue there. I don't want to use anything with any actual grit. And one reason that I wanted to show rather than tell one of these things at least is because for me, the building is as difficult or more difficult than the painting, especially the simple way that I paint. So I'm still getting the gap, so I'm still trying to hold it kind of together. Dog is growling at a squirrel. He doesn't like the squirrel in his yard. All right, when I let go of it, the gap didn't really reappear. It didn't seem like. So I think it's, ta-da, I think it's done. All right, and I apologize for the wait. I'm just gonna make sure that these messages are not important to me. Okay, I'll watch that later. I put a heart on it, so my daughter knows I liked it. All right, parts 14, 15, and 16. Now here's one where the head is sandwiched in between. And it usually has a little thing on the head, and they're showing that go there. There's usually a little thing on the head that gets the head in the right orientation. And then I'm noticing that he's turning kind of to his left, like this. A little bit to, or say this is his head. He's kind of turning a little bit to the left, his left, a little bit. So to make sure that that head is right, I'll make sure that that happens, right? And I can definitely see glue in this thing. I don't know why it works so badly. All right. So we have part 14, 15, and 16. So here's 14, here's 16, and I think we'll get the head out first. Ooh, look at that. It's only attached by 1 point. That would usually be the part that in these boxes like the Crypt of Blood came in, which are not clamshell, would fall off the sprue and be lost, right? I don't remember, but hopefully the Games Workshop put that in a bag. And I kind of turned with my left a little bit as I was scraping, so I make sure I get it around that cylinder. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like he's got all of his things, and there's probably going to be a mold line between it, but no, it looks like there's the thing that actually holds the spikes, like the little band that goes around his head. Sorry about that. So hopefully that is pretty mold line free. And I've already found 14 and 16 there and there. So 16 looks like the most of a challenge to get off. And I think I'm going to clip it right here because there's this weak point right here. So I'm going to make sure I'm stabilizing it all the time until I get it completely cut off. And I have to kind of go at an angle because there's that little bump there. Kind of got to go at an angle to get it flush. 1, 2, I'm going to hold it with my right so I can get my left back on it and stabilize it. 3. There's some detail up there I want to make sure I don't obliterate. So I take my time and do a nice job. Yeah, I think I left all the detail. 1, probably one on this. No. Oh yeah, I remember this one, because this is the one I clipped first. 2. A little bit of a mold line. 3. Now, sometimes if I'm not sure that I got all the trees, because I don't remember it being on both shoulders, sometimes I take and I compare it to where it was attached, try to figure out how it was attached to the sprue to see where the mold line was. Right there, right on his calf. And there's a big honking mold line that I might not have seen unless I came in with the LED light. So it's good I did that. Let's just look at the other side and make sure that there's none. It's kind of a slight mold line going up his inner thigh too. So we got parts 16 and 15. And he's going to be looking to his left. So I think it's going to be kind of like that. Like that. And maybe that tab right there fits into the other part. So I'll leave that up. Although it fell back down by gravity. 14. All right, and there doesn't seem to be any real weak places. So this is one I'll have to go from the other side. I have to watch out for that little nub there. And here I want to be careful. I want to make sure it looks kind of triangular in 3 dimensions, a triangular pyramid look to it, that I'm not cutting off a joiner that we need. 1, 2, 3. If you do that, try not to, certainly. 3 places to scrape. If you do that, then you'll have to use glue. And there's also a mold line that goes. So I'm going to actually scrape it right along that mold line. I'm kind of rotating it a little bit as I do it. And you can kind of get more accuracy if you go down to this part of the blade than up here. I'm just going over it with my fingernail. Okay, that looks pretty good. In this one, I think the easiest way to go at it would just be scrape it, rather than try to cut it off. 2. And I believe it's right. Oh yeah, I remember that shape. 3. And again, I'm going to scrape it. I'm going to make sure that's level with my fingernail. Make sure there's no mold lines. 3. All right, now I believe the cape is going to be going, yeah. Oh, it doesn't look like the picture at all. Oh, because I'm looking at the wrong picture. Yeah. Yeah, the cape is going out like that. And I always have that happen where I'm looking at the wrong model, and then I'm confused. All right, I'm going to test fit these two, then try to figure out how the head goes. I think the head actually goes into the cape. But I'm just going to stick it down a little bit and make sure, yeah, he's facing off to his left, so that I'm going to push it all the way down in. And I don't think I'll have to, fortunately, mess around with any glue again. My fingernail is really great for removing any more of that attachment point from that one that I was afraid of because of it had some detail up there. So my fingernail is pretty forgiving. All right, now I have 17, which looks pretty straightforward to attach his leg. And then I have a bow and another piece that looks kind of challenging, right? Especially the way I cut that bow out. I'll have to be very careful. All right. So 17 looks straightforward. Probably all are seeing it, and I'm still looking. Okay, it's only attached at 2 points, which seems kind of risky on the model. And I make sure I leave that cylinder, that attachment cylinder on there. 1, 2. 2 places to scrape. And if you can remember one of them, that gives you a kind of a head start on it. I remember that there was one on the bottom. And I'm going to target that area with the small part of the blade, but there's also a mold line that I want to get flat. If nothing else, that'll make his foot fit down flat. Looks like there may be one on his knee. What part was that? Part 17. Yeah. So there was one on his foot. Oh, and one was on the end of the cylinder. I remember now. Scrape the edges of that cylinder just to make it fit in there without any pressure. Just to give it a little bit of leeway. It looks like it's just coming out straight toward you. Oh, but I better make sure, yeah, it looks like it goes into the arrow thing. Ah, okay, and then it fits up against his torso there. So that's an anatomy check, right? And it looks like it's designed pretty well where the gap doesn't show. All right, that looks pretty good. Now, almost looks like you want to attach the base on first, but I think that'll be harder to manipulate. Okay, 19 and 18. I'm curious about that 18. Yeah, that's a very small part. There, it's got two parts. So I'm stabilizing it. Cut one, moving my stabilization, cut two. So two places to scrape on that little part. This is the kind of part that gets away from me and I have to spend hours looking for it on the floor. And then hope I get it before my dog. But knowing that makes me really aware of how I'm holding it to make sure I'm not holding it in a way that's unstable. Okay, again, a little bit with the fingernail. Now it looks all dark blue, so it's good to go. So it looks like that fits right in the middle of the crossbow, so that it looks like it attaches right onto his arm. Yeah, there he is. Looks like he's missing an arm, maybe. Yeah, so maybe onto there, and then maybe there's another nub on the crossbow, maybe that one that fits on the other one. All right, very fragile, so I'm going to want to make sure I'm stabilizing this. It looks like these little things have to come off. And they have that little triangular pyramid shape to them. So looking at the picture, look at this picture, yeah, I'm pretty positive. And I think I'm going to clip those off first. Very, very carefully. One, two. That was risky. Two little pieces. And then I'm going to stabilize it here, making sure I don't turn it inadvertently with my left hand. One, and you have to go at the right angle because there's bumps coming out of it. Two, and then holding on to it again. Level with the thing, and then it feels like it wants to come out this way. Although it's, oh, there's attached one more place. We have more to scrape. I think that was 4 attachment points. Number 19. Yep, 4 attachment points. And I didn't plan for the last one, so that was kind of risky. So something this fragile, it's not a bad idea to have 2 plans. Plan A and Plan B, and make sure Plan A and Plan B match. All right, this is very risky there. I don't want to scrape it because I don't want to give it that much friction. All right, this is very risky. So I'm stabilizing the other part while I scrape along here and kind of rotate to get it all off. So this goes in the middle of the bow. Now the hard part, and where you want to use the picture to orient it exactly how it is in the picture. And then I want to have this flat part of the bracer, the thing that goes on his wrist, against, coming up at me. So I'm holding it like this. I'm supporting the bottom of this with my finger as I push down. Oh, I'm also going to scrape this a little bit so it goes in there a little easier. Because I don't want to be creating a lot of force on it. putting it in the exact orientation that it is in the picture. And putting my finger underneath it to stabilize it. Feels like it fits really tight. And just beveling it a little bit too, is if your angle is a little bit off, it'll kind of self-correct, right? And it always says in the instructions, make sure you're not pushed to it. Now here it shows another picture, it kind of shows it different. It shows it with it being flat down like this. See how it shows it going more flat? So I think I was trying to attach it on the wrong end. So again, supporting the underneath. Oh, that fit real easily and I can push it together. Oh, I've already weakened this right here. Very risky. Yeah, this is a very risky, fragile model. It's got to go in two places. I think it goes like that. God, I feel like I'm gonna break this. Okay, I'm gonna stabilize these two parts. Yep, he's holding it down low. So it looks like he's kind of holding it upside down. But it does seem like the angles of these line up better. See how that's getting weakened in white? Not a good sign. Not a good sign. And it's getting weakened there. And this is why I don't like to buy models that other people have assembled. Because if I break my model, I'm mad. But if I get a model that someone else broke, I'm going to be more unhappy. And hopefully that'll be made stronger with paint. That was difficult. All right. So number 20. One, 2, 3. Try to scrape at the right angle so that I keep the bevel the way it is. 2. 3. Okay. And he attaches in one place, and he's got the front part of his shoe. That was actually really easy. Okay, and I'm pushing down here because it's better than pushing down there where I'll break something. All right, hopefully he'll be stronger once he's painted, but I got him built. Hopefully the next one will be easier. All right, I think I'm going to call the video now. That's an hour that I was working on these two figures, so I think I'm going to make a part 2 and put the other 2 together in what will hopefully be a shorter video. So this will be called WarCry Build, and the next one will be called WarCry Build 2. Okay, thank you. Appreciate you, Eternals.